Oh, good afternoon to you. 406 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Hans Von Spakovsky will be with us at 4:30. He's an expert on election law, and he'll be talking about this effort to, well, the latest arrest of Donald Trump set to take place tonight at 7:30. What does Hans think of that? We'll ask him. Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, is here at 5 o'clock. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. I'm sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have fired Wayne into the sun, but, you do take it personally when we spend so much time talking about these issues here. They get accused of not doing that. Interestingly, I'm glad Hans is coming up at 4:30. He's written the book on the subject, the way the left has screwed up our election system here in the United States. We haven't shared it publicly, but I'll tell you now, the Daily Caller, where I'm also an editor, is currently working on a documentary on this subject, on the rigging of elections by the American left. And I've done extensive interviews for it and a lot of script writing for it. And I'm really excited about the project. It'll be cool when it comes out. Giving sort of a sweeping overview of all of the election meddling and rigging the left does and through all of its various institutions. And I think it's going to be a very good, solid project. And one of the guys I interviewed was Hans Von Spakovsky, again, who's coming up at 4:30. We sat down and did an extensive a run-through of all the states and the way that the rigging has worked. It's fascinating, actually. And an immense public service, I think. And I'm glad Hans's mind is out there, a guy who really knows election law cold to help navigate all of this. So, again, Hans is joining us at 4:30. We'll talk to him about Donald Trump's indictment arrest tonight in Georgia, because the left, if they're good at anything, it's targeting their political opponents in the most vicious possible way. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing all of these mug shots coming out. Mark Meadows today. Just Trump associates all being arrested for daring to associate with him. This is how Soviet they are. They're going after all of his attorneys, trying to destroy them, prevent them from having careers in the future. And this is all to send a message. Don't support him. If you support him, you get close to him, you work with him, we will crush you. We will crush you. So there you go. Let's see. Lucy calling in from Arlington, line 3. Lucy, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hello, Vince. I am calling to, to congratulate you for going after that guy the way you did. I always say about you, a lot of things here, but one, I do. I've told you before, and I do. I love the format of your show. You have intelligent guests with very great information. They give great information, and you ask questions. You clearly set it up on the material and prepared to ask sensible questions, informative questions that help.
Well, thank you.
But here comes the bad part.
Uh-oh.
Yes. Remember one time this has been a while ago, you mentioned on your show that you were on the Brett Baer show with Marie Harp.
Uh-huh.
And she said something, I don't recall what it was, but she said something and you didn't push back on her on the show.
Right.
But I was saying to myself when you said that on the radio, you should have pushed back on her because, one, you are my voice, our voice, who think conservatively and Republicans and whatever. You are our voice. So when you didn't say anything to Marie, you left it out there for all those who listen to her and think like her that, oh, she must be right because you didn't say anything.
I agree. I respect this. Look, I said it at the time, too. I came on my show the next day, and I said, man, I was sitting there I was on the fence of what do you do, because this is one of these things. You're like on somebody else's program. I'm on Brett's show. And they're trying to time things out on television and kind of give Marie the last word. But her last word that day, as I recall, was stupid. And I was very tempted to be like, all right, do I jump in or do I just sit back and we just go to break? You always got to figure out how to navigate that. But Lucy, you're not the first person who said to me, I want you to jump in. So I'm going to do that from now on.
Okay, let me follow up with you with one more thing.
Okay.
One, that you are not a mean person. Your voice is not one of those, listening to you on the radio, you don't come on all aggravated. I think that voice, that phone call, that's the first time I heard you. I was thinking to myself, oh, he brought it. He just, that's the way, I was yelling at the radio for you because I'm like, I've never heard you, and I listen to you almost every single day, but I've never heard you come at anyone like that. So I thought he must have really got under your skin accusing you of something that you didn't do.
Lucy, thank you. And let me just ask you, just as a student of the show, somebody, not a student, but as a great listener, somebody who's been listening so much, do we not talk about the left's election rigging and subversion and destruction of our system on an almost daily basis.
Yes. You have talked about it a number of times, and I would like for you to talk about it more. Get Molly Hemingway on there with her book.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys who wrote those articles.
She wrote a whole book called Rigged. The book is Rigged.
Yeah.
It's a great book. Molly is fantastic. I love Molly.
Yes. Get her on there. But you're not a mean person, and you could have came back to Marie with that nice voice that you have now. It's nice and calm. You're not someone who screams and shouts and aggravates or anything. You're a calm dude. You could have came at her and just said, just with a nice correction, it would have been all good. But
all right.
The way you just went after that dude was like, whew.
There you go. See, look, now I'm a student of Lucy. Thank you, Lucy. I appreciate it. I'll take the advice. I genuinely appreciate the call and the listenership. Be well.
Right.
Let me play some audio for you now. I've got Tucker and Trump last night. Here is no restrictions on this, by the way. I mentioned yesterday Fox has limited everybody in the media. You can only play 3 minutes of this audio. What? 3 minutes? People need to hear this stuff. And don't you want to kind of promote your network? Whatever. Tucker does an interview with Trump. I can play the whole interview for you if we'd like, but we'll just stick to a couple of audio sound bites.
But I just felt it would be more appropriate not to do the debate. I don't think it's right to do it. If you're leading by 50, 60, I have one problem leading by 70 points, and I'm saying, why am I doing it? And I'm going to have 8 people, 10 people, whoever made the debate, I don't know how many it is, but I'm going to have all these people screaming at me, shouting questions at me, all of which I love answering, I love doing, but it doesn't make sense to do them. So I've taken it.
Yeah, there's no upside for me is basically the Trump answer. There. Trump was also critical of Fox News last night. Fox's executives cannot have been happy about any of this. Like there's a full-blown interview with the leading candidate going on at the same time that the debate is airing, and here's what that candidate had to say about Fox.
Fox is way down, as you know, and the good old days are long ago. I will say this, it could come back, but they just don't have a lot of credibility, Tucker.
Look, holding out some hope. Look at that guy. He said they could come back.
That perhaps better than anybody. I think it was a terrible move getting rid of you. You were number one on television, and all of a sudden we're doing this interview, but we'll get bigger ratings using this crazy forum that you're using than probably the debate or competition.
Yeah, I haven't checked the numbers since the beginning of the program, but somewhere in the vicinity of 230 million impressions already on this interview between Trump and Tucker. Let's see. Here's an interesting question for Trump. Very interesting question for Trump. Is he worried that the left has gotten so crazy that it's going to reach the point where someone tries to assassinate you? Now, let me pause and just say there have been assassination threats, certainly, and I think attempts even that have been stopped. There was obviously the left was looking to siege the White House, so much so that they burned part of the church across the street from the White House. The Secret Service had to pull Donald Trump down into the bunker of the White House to protect him from that insurrection, that incursion on the White House. So Tucker asked, are you concerned about how quickly this is escalating?
It started with protests against you, massive protests, right. Organized protests by the left, and then it moved to impeachment twice,
right.
And now indictment. I mean, the next stage is violence. Are you worried that they're going to try and kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you, honestly?
They're savage animals. They are people that are sick, really sick. You have great people in the Democrat Party. You have great people that are Democrats. Most of the people in our country are fantastic, and I'm representing everybody. I'm not just Republicans or conservatives. Right. I represent everybody. I'm the president of everybody. But I've seen what they do. I've seen the lengths that they go to. When they make up the Russia, when that's exposed and they go down, and Barr should have gone after them, and other people should have gone after, and they did very late because the Durham report came out. It was fairly good. It could have been a lot tougher, I guess, but it was fairly good. But it explained how corrupt it was. I'll tell you who did a great job was the Inspector General Horowitz. He did a phenomenal report. You didn't have to go to Durham. He did it on Comey and on, I guess, McCabe and some others, and it was a vicious, it was basically a true report, how bad they are. But these people are sick people. These are people that I think they hate our country. You want to know the truth?
Well, they certainly hate the voters, no question. I mean, why would you work so feverishly to undermine them at every turn? I mean, they're right now trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot because the last thing they want is the voters to have a choice in the election. That can't happen. No. Well, that's not democracy, is it? That's not a constitutional republic, is it? But this is what they want to do. I've said it before. I'll say it again. You know what we're going to witness tonight? This arrest of Donald Trump for a horse crap charge. The idea that he was trying to overturn the election. If there is anybody in the United States that is responsible for assessing these questions, it's the people's representatives in Congress. That's it. That's what the Constitution says. And Donald Trump was subjected to 2 impeachments while he was president of the United States. And the second impeachment was about January 6, 2020. It was about the 2020 election. And the Senate rendered a verdict. Not guilty. He was acquitted in the United States Senate. This has been litigated in the place it's supposed to be litigated, the United States Congress. And you've got these lunatic left-wing tyrants at every level who are abusing their power to try and rob the American people of the ability to make a decision for themselves. That's actually what's happening. That is, once again, election rigging. Tucker also asks about the fact that Jeffrey Epstein, remember him? The pedophile, now deceased? Jeffrey Epstein was held in federal prison. And yet, he died in federal prison. He was not surveilled or something. The cameras were off. The guards were asleep. The logs were forged. So that all adds up to, it seems pretty unlikely that he killed himself. Here's what Tucker asked about it.
It's interesting. I read Barr's account of his time. He wrote a book about it.
Right.
His autobiography. And in it, he lies about Jeffrey Epstein's death. Clearly lies. Do you think Epstein killed himself sincerely?
I don't know. I will say that, he was a fixture in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
I don't know what Barr said about it either. I have no idea what he said. What did he say? He killed himself, probably?
Yeah, that's what Bill Barr said. Bill released a report, the former attorney general, saying, he killed himself. There were all sorts of problems, and the problems should be fixed, but Epstein killed himself. That was the report. And Tucker's saying he's lying. You can't come to any other conclusion. It's not possible. How did he killed himself? Given all of these obvious circumstances that suggest he didn't and that foul play was at work? How could you come to such a certain conclusion like that? Trump was also asked about Biden's fitness for office. Trump said Biden's not even able to lift a very light beach chair.
You don't think he's going to make it to November of 2024?
Well, I think he's worse mentally than he is physically, and physically he's not exactly a triathlete or any kind of an athlete. You look at him, he can't walk to the helicopter. He walks, he can't lift his feet out of the grass. It's only 2 inches at the White House, right? That's not a lot.
Now, when he says it's only 2 inches at the White House, do you think he's just kind of ballparking it, or does he know for a fact that the grass is 2 inches in height? He's a golf course guy, right? He probably does actually kind of know the difference between a Kentucky bluegrass and a rye and a tall fescue. He's probably familiar with the differences here. The mowing heights, what the right height for a green and a fairway and a rough is. He says the White House is at 2 inches. I'd be interested to know whether or not he's right on the money there. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump had asked some of the White House groundskeepers there, hey, where are you cutting the grass at? They say 2 inches, Mr. President, and that stuck with him.
The White House, right? That's not a lot. But you watch him, and it looks like he's walking on toothpicks. So, and then you see him on the beach where he can't lift a chair. Those chairs are meant to be light, right? They're like 2 ounces.
Yeah.
You lift them up. He can't lift the chair. He can't walk to the chair.
But, again, you wonder, how did this guy get elected? He's totally right about that. I don't know if I would have ever thought of that, but he can't even lift the chair. The chair's like nothing. Yeah, it's a beach chair. It's designed to be carried very easily, but he can't do it.
She has some bad moments. Her moments are almost as bad as his. I think his are worse, actually.
Yeah.
But
she seems pretty senile, too.
She speaks in rhyme. It's weird. It's weird. But she has bad moments. And
in rhyme? What do you...
Well, the way she talks, the bus will go here and then the bus will go there because that's what buses do. And it's weird. The whole thing is weird. This is not a president of the United States future. And I think they probably have some kind of a primary. And other people will get involved.
In case you're still confused about who Donald Trump was talking about, Kamala Harris. She's crazy. Phil in Fredericksburg calling in on line 6. Phil, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello, sir.
Hey, Vince, look, you got me to call in when you were talking about Tucker giving you permission to use the whole program, and Fox would only give you 3 minutes. And it just shows that Tucker's a real good dude. And I was so happy when President Trump was able to talk to somebody that wasn't trying to get a soundbite, wasn't trying to backstab him. He was relaxed. You could see the concern for America on his face. But the thing that really irks me most about this is how no ex-president has come to the defense of President Trump's constitutional right.
That's right.
Not one president has stood up for his constitutional right.
Nope. It's a little corrupt club, and they are not interested in defending Trump. They loathe him. They want nothing to do with him. In fact, they want to take him down. Phil, you're right. In a good and decent country, those people would be stepping forward and saying this shouldn't happen, and yet they're not. They're aiding and abetting it. It is disgraceful. Thank you, Phil. Coming up, more on this subject as we're joined by Hans Von Spakovsky, elections expert, to talk about election law and the way that Georgia is abusing it today. Good afternoon. 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jason Miyares, joins us. We'll talk about these school districts who are in open revolt against the voters in the Commonwealth. They say they will trans the children, and you can't stop them. We'll talk to the Attorney General about that, what will be done. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We are now just 3 hours, a little bit less than 3 hours away from the left once again arresting the former president of the United States and the current leading candidate for president of the United States against Joe Biden. This is quite obviously an election time effort to destroy Joe Biden's most likely reason for leaving the White House. And today, Fulton County, Georgia, Donald Trump to be booked there. And now a mugshot is expected to be released this evening to go with the ones from all of his many associates who've been arrested in the last 24 hours. It's about time. Release the mugshot. Really emphasize the injustice that's taking place here. And the left thinks this is going to be a great thing. I don't know. It could be their downfall. Let's see. Let's bring in Hans Von Spakovsky. He's the manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative. He's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation's Meese Center, and he joins us on the phone. Hans, good to have you with us, sir.
Vince, nice to talk to you again.
Tell me, Hans, what do you make of the indictment that Fani Willis, the district attorney down there in Fulton County, has dropped against Trump, and the fact that they're arresting him today?
I think this is an abusive prosecution by a politically ambitious local Democratic prosecutor. And look, folks who don't like Donald Trump need to divorce their feelings about Trump from what's going on in this lawsuit, because what she has done is created this supposed criminal conspiracy, criminal violations of law against Donald Trump and a dozen and a half other defendants for engaging in actions that are protected by the First Amendment. She is attempting to make it illegal to question the outcome of an election. I mean, that's the plain truth of this prosecution, and it's a dubious, like I said, a totally spurious prosecution.
Now, and she's predicating it in no small part on a phone call that Donald Trump placed to the Secretary of State of Georgia, Brad Raffensperger. Trump, in that call, insisted we won, as in his campaign won in the state of Georgia, and he asked him to continue auditing the votes in the state in order to find the votes that would prove that point. She has interpreted that as Donald Trump called the Secretary of State and told him to steal the election. How do you arrive at that conclusion?
Well, you don't. And that shows you how bizarre Fani Willis is, and frankly, the grand jurors who agreed with this. look, all you have to do is read. You don't have to be a lawyer to realize how nutty this prosecution is. Pull the indictment and read through it. She lists about 160 acts, each one of which she says was unlawful. There was an illegal act in furtherance of conspiracy. And if you read it, I mean, you're going to start laughing and thinking, is this something from the Babylon Bee? And to just give you a quick example, a supposedly illegal act by Mark Meadows, right, chief of staff for President Trump, was that he sent a text message to Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania saying, can you send me the telephone number of the majority leader of the Pennsylvania House, because SCOTUS wants to talk to him. Now, the idea that that's some kind of an illegal act is totally nutty, all right? Or another supposedly illegal act was Donald Trump sending out a public tweet saying, oh, I'm watching the televised coverage of the Georgia legislative hearings investigating the 2020 election. The idea that that's an illegal act is just such a violation of the First Amendment that it tells you how abusive this prosecutor is in bringing this action.
So, and I would think in a normal world, if a government official was trampling all over and destroying the constitutional rights of an American citizen, that there might be consequences for that. Are there any consequences for Fani Willis coming in here and just abusing an American citizen and a leading candidate for office for constitutionally protected actions and speech?
Well, at the moment, no. And part of the problem here is you have cowardly state court judges, the ones who are supposed to supervise Fani Willis and the grand jury, not taking action to do that. Not only that, but look, the state attorney general, Chris Carlson, he ought to be stepping in to prevent this abusive prosecution. That's not happening. Another example of this is that there's actually a state agency. It's called the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia that is supposed to regulate prosecutors across the state to make sure they don't engage in unethical, unprofessional conduct. But that council is made up of former prosecutors. And they, instead of regulating prosecutors, they act as if they're the union representing prosecutors.
I'd like to see how many of those prosecutors have donated to Democrats, too, because that seems to be a theme through all of this.
That's right. And don't forget, look, Fani Willis already has been cited by a one judge for unethical conduct in this grand jury investigation when she publicly announced that a senator at the time, Burt Jones, was a target of her grand jury for his supposedly illegal actions. He was running for lieutenant governor of the state, and it's right after she had publicly announced that he was a target of a grand jury investigation, she then went to and helped organize a fundraiser for the Democratic candidate running against Burt Jones. That tells you what a partisan she is and how she's trying to use this grand jury investigation for political purposes.
Can you talk about the timing here? This is now, we're now in to late 2023. I think I feel relatively safe saying late 2023. We're heading we're in the thick of the presidential election now. In your view, is it in any way a coincidence that events that apparently took place in 2020 and early 2021 are only being prosecuted now in the lead up to the 2024 election?
No, it's not a coincidence. This is a woman who is a formerly obscure local county prosecutor who sees this case as her political ticket to prominence with the Democratic Party. And there's no reason. But look, it took her this long to come up with this grand jury indictment, and yet she's already moved saying, oh, but the trial has to happen starting in March, which when you have this many defendants and you're claiming they all need to be prosecuted at the same time in the same a trial? Come on. I mean, that tells you all you want. Again,
Well,
all you want to know about this prosecutor.
and among these defendants are Donald Trump's lawyers. So have you ever seen anything like this where the attorneys, the people who are available to you to give you counsel on what you can and can't do under the terms of the law, are all being prosecuted by this district attorney? Their lives are being upended, destroyed, because she is going after them for, once again, representing him in a case involving his constitutionally protected speech and options.
No, that is another sign of how abusive this prosecution is. Look, I wrote a very detailed analysis of this about 2 weeks ago for the Daily Signal, and what I called this was not only an attack on the First Amendment, but an attack on the entire American legal system and how it works. Because she's claiming these lawyers engaged in a criminal conspiracy. Why? Because they actually did what the professional code of conduct that governs lawyers in Georgia says they are supposed to do. They vigorously represented the interests of their client, Donald Trump, in court hearings and before the state legislature. And for that, she says they violated the law. Under her theory, any lawyer who takes up the defense of someone charged, for example, with a criminal violation of the law, if they lose that case, why, they could be charged as part of the criminal conspiracy. In fact, listen, if I were the lawyers right now who are going to be representing these defendants in court in Georgia, I'd be filing a motion with the Georgia court saying, I want to guarantee that Fani Willis isn't going to prosecute me simply for defending this case.
I just can't believe it's here. And is it my impression, or are there like only a handful of judges who are willing to stand up to this tyranny now? It feels like the whole legal system is very corrupted.
Oh, I think that's true. Like I said, I don't think the judges in Fulton County have done what they should have to supervise this, especially when, remember, was it just a couple of months ago when the foreman of this grand jury was giving interviews on CNN and MSNBC, and she was a real flake. And she was talking about how fun it was that they got to pull all these famous people in to question them. That should have caused the judge to act immediately, and no judge did anything about it.
I have audio of her. This is some flashback audio of the crazy lunatic foreperson in this grand jury in Georgia.
Did you personally want to hear from the former president?
I wanted to hear from the former president, but honestly, I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president because I got to swear everybody in. And so I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump of me looking at him and being like, do you solemnly swear? And me getting to swear him in. I kind of just thought that would be an awesome moment.
I don't have a lot of confidence in our justice system right now.
Well, yeah, there's no reason to. And keep in mind, at the very same time that Fani Willis, this local DA, has indicted Donald Trump for claiming that the election in Georgia was stolen from him, look at what she hasn't done. She hasn't indicted her fellow Democrat, Stacey Abrams, the twice Democratic nominee for governor in the state, who lost twice and has repeatedly and on numerous occasions said and claimed that both those elections were stolen from her, that votes were suppressed. Basically, all the same kinds of public statements that Fani Willis now says are criminal violations of the law. She's not indicting Stacey Abrams for basically doing exactly the same thing.
What is it also, there seems to be a theme here in these local prosecutors deciding to involve themselves in federal law. I realize each state administers their own election, and that might be the way that they approach this, but Alvin Bragg in New York is quite obviously trying to prosecute Trump for violations of federal law. What does he have to do with federal law? And Fani Willis, I mean, they've adopted powers unto themselves that I'm pretty sure they don't have.
No, that is exactly right. And again, it shows you that these are basically political partisans. I mean, think about Fani Willis and what she's doing. She is the prosecutor in Fulton County, Georgia. That means her jurisdiction is only in that county. She doesn't have jurisdiction over criminal acts that occur elsewhere. Yet if you read the indictment, her indictment covers acts that occurred not only in other parts of Georgia, but in numerous other states. She specifically lists supposedly illegal acts that occurred in places like Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and is claiming jurisdiction over that. I'm sure if you talk to the attorney generals in those states, they would be surprised to learn that a local DA in Atlanta, Georgia, is claiming jurisdiction over things that happened in their state.
Finally, I saw somebody, I got an email from somebody saying that Trump's not going to get any help from some of the senior Republicans in Georgia because he's famously battled them so much. Governor Brian Kemp, the head there. Georgia has a pardon system, the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles.
Right.
Is this the kind of thing where they would have the power to pardon Trump and get this case out of his hair?
They would. Now, the governor doesn't have that power as in other states. It is the Pardons and Parole Board. And, yeah, they have the authority to do something about, as does the Prosecuting Attorneys Council that I talked to before, that basically, instead of regulating abusive prosecutors in Georgia, it just acts like they're their union to protect them.
Yeah. It is amazing that we've reached this point. Thank you for helping us understand it. Hans Von Spakovsky, as always, sir, nice to chat with you today. All right, I've got some viewership numbers to share with you for the Fox News debate last night. Nielsen's early data being released. Fox News' first Republican debate of the cycle brought in 12.8 million total viewers. 12.8 million total viewers, according to the data released by Nielsen. Mediaite reporting this. If you go back to 2015, though, that first debate with Trump, remember Megyn Kelly and Only Rosie. That debate brought in 24 million total average viewers as opposed to 12.8. So more than double last night's opening salvo in the Republican primaries. The 12 debates of the 2016 campaign actually averaged around 15 million viewers, each of them. And Trump boycotted the January 28th, 2016 debate. That brought in 12.5. That's the same number that was that occurred last night without him on the stage. Meanwhile, over on Twitter, where Donald Trump sat down with Tucker Carlson, the two of them, let me see, I'm going to give you the updated numbers now. And again, these are not quite the same, not exactly views. These are impressions, people who've encountered the video. Many of them have watched. 236 million for that conversation. Is the media changing before our very eyes? It sure seems like it. Coming up next, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Jason Miyares, is with us as Virginia schools, some left-wing school districts, are in open revolt against the parents. They say, we're going to trans the kids anyway. Jason Miyares weighs in next.